Hello and welcome, this is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, I'm sharing some Foiled Elegance using the Whisper Weave press plate with some die cut florals. The Whisper Weave press plate is part of a new collection that came out this past month, and I used it in a video already. I'll link to it at the end of this video. I'm just going to use this side profile here, and I'm going to foil it and then add some die cut florals to give it some extra dimension. I'm going to ink blend those die cut florals with some interference inks for a little bit of extra shimmer, but I thought that side profile image would look beautiful with some extra die cuts on top. So I'm using some Aura foil for this image. It's a beautiful gold foil that has a holographic shine to it. And I'm also going to solid hot foil that image as well. And I'm going to use that piece for the mat around my card to tie in the foiling. There are several different sentiments to choose from with this plate, and those sentiments also have dies that go with them. So I'm going to foil two of them. I'm only going to be using one of them for the card, but I have enough foil to do two of them. I will choose which sentiment I use at the end. So I'm doing my foiling on Hammermill Cardstock. I do foiling quite often. I really love the look of it. You just simply put that press plate on the Glimmer system, on the hot Glimmer system with the picture or the script side up, the foil with the pretty side down, and then I like to foil on Hammermill Cardstock. Put those plates on top of it and then press that timer button. Once that timer button goes off, you just put it through a die cutting machine. Spellbinders has a list of compatible machines on their website. I just have a Platinum 6 machine here. That works perfectly. And then the foiling layering for solid hot foil plates are exactly the same, just swapping out the press plate for the solid hot foil plate. Now, sometimes when I'm doing foiling, I get a little bit of over foiling. There's not much to this image, but just a little bit. So I have some Best Ever Craft tape. It's the thicker one here that I like to use. I put it on my shirt or my pants up a couple times just to take a little bit of that sticky off. And then I put it on those images just to clean them up. And sometimes you don't even know it's over foiled, but once you put that tape on there and lift it up, you'll notice that the image or the sentiment is a lot more crisp. Once that has been cleaned up, then you can match up the dies for the sentiment and die cut them. I had a sand eraser there. There was one little mark there that the tape didn't quite get up on the neck. So I just use that sand eraser. When that tape doesn't clean up the images enough, I'll use the sand eraser, but the tape is a lot gentler and a lot easier to use. So with my coordinating dies, I also tape them to the cardstock before die cutting so that when it goes through the machine, those dies are going to stay exactly where I want them to. I want to make sure that they don't move on me. With this set, because I'm doing two sentiments here, the second one that I have that I don't end up using, I'm going to be putting right in the package with my press plate and dies so that next time I'm using it, I might just have that sentiment all ready to go and it's going to be perfect for that particular project. For my solid hot foiled image there that I'm going to use as a mat, I trim that down to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And then my image piece, I trim down to 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. I'm going to do some very simple and quick Copic coloring to color in the face, the lips, the eyebrows, as well as the butterflies. So for her face, I have EOO and EO2. I'm just doing some super quick coloring with the EOO first. Then I'm going to go in with the EO2 just to do some of the shading on the outsides of the face, on the neck, right under where the florals are going to go. And then I'm going to go back over with the EO2 and blend those two together. So when I blend them together, I go back over with the lighter color and blend the whole thing together. And that blends the two colors and it evens the color tone out between those two. You could use another way of coloring if you prefer. This particular plate doesn't have a stencil set to color it, so it does need some freehand coloring. Another option here would be to heat emboss this image and then watercolor the image. That would work well as well. For the eyebrows, I'm using E35 and E39. Now the eyebrows are really quite small, so you could probably just go with one of the colors, but I'm going in with the E35, which is the lighter color, little bit of the E39, which is the darker right along the bottom, and then going back over with the lighter color. For the lips, and then later on for the butterflies, I'm using RV21 and RV34. This is a pinky purple tone. For my florals, I'm using some Orchid Cardstock as well as Mulberry Cardstock, which is a pinky purpley color. So I chose a lip color that was similar-ish to those colors. I wanted to have the lips look or coordinate with those florals. So once again, I'm going in with the lighter color, which is the RV21, then doing the shading with the RV39, and then back over with the RV21 to blend those two together. So my florals, I have some of them already done, but I have one of each one left to do. They're already die cut out of those cardstocks. That light color there is Alabaster. It's just kind of a cream colored cardstock. And then my greens, my greenery, my leaves are die cut out of Rainforest Cardstock. And again, you can do any color palette with this that you want. I just chose to do a pinky purple with this. So I've layered the roses together, the two colors of the roses together before doing my ink blending. Then I'm using some Lavender Fields Interference ink on those roses just around the outside edges. On the other 4-petal floral, I just used that Lavender Fields right on the inside, so it has it on the inside of the petals. On my greenery, I used a little bit of the Summer Garden Interference. And then on those tiny cream florals, I used a little bit of gold on the center, and then I have one center dot or one middle dot for my 4-petaled flowers that I use the gold on as well. So we have a combination of the cardstock, the shimmery ink from the interference inks, as well as the gold ink. And that gold ink was intended to kind of coordinate with my Aura foil that I have those images foiled in. Now, I wasn't sure if I was going to see any of these butterflies with the floral, so I decided to color them anyways. It turns out they're completely hidden by the floral, so if you're going to do the card the same way that I do, this is a step that you can completely miss. Again, I just wanted, if there was a chance that there was going to be one or two that would show up, I wanted to make sure that they were colored, and it was going to be much easier to color them ahead of time. Now these florals that I'm going to put on here, they just add a little bit of extra dimension and a little bit of extra texture to this. Sometimes when you're doing foiling, even though the foiling has some beautiful shine to it, the coloring method sometimes keeps it a little bit flat. So by adding those extra florals, we're going to have that beautiful texture from it. And then by adding those different finishes, like the interference inks as well as the gold ink, it adds to it as well and takes it to the next level. So with those pieces ready to go, I decided I wanted to do a little bit of ink blending around my image piece there. It's quite white around the outside edges. So I just did a little bit of light ink blending with the Vintage Photo Distress ink. You could also do this in a pinky purple color, but I didn't want to detract from the floral. So I opted for something that was a little bit more on the neutral side. And I'm not doing heavy ink blending here, just a little bit of color, just to frame it in just a little bit before we go and assemble our card. So I'm working on an A2 card base here. I'm gluing down my mat. I'm using some Barely Art glue in a fine line bottle. I like using liquid glue because it gives you that wiggle room to move and shimmy things in place, and then the glue starts to set, and it works especially well with the florals when I'm layering them on top of my image here. So I have that drying. I have an acrylic block on top of that. That just holds everything down nice and flat, but I can start to figure out how my florals are going to be layered on here while that's on top, and I can see it right on my background. You do want to, when you're using liquid glue, try not to drop your piece right in the middle of a piece or an area that you're not going to be gluing something on. It wipes up really quite easily, but it's always optimal not to actually drop it on there. So with these florals, I'm going to start with my leaf clusters. I have 3 of them cut, and I'm kind of putting them in like a triangle shape. Then I have clusters with those little cream flowers with the gold centers. I'm putting those close to those leaf clusters there. Then adding my roses in the center. Now I cut my roses the same colors. You could, if you want, add a few different color shades, or you could change it like I did the Orchid Cardstock, which is the lighter color towards the bottom, and then the Mulberry for the upper layer. But you could swap that out if you wanted to give them a different look from each other. The only reason I didn't do that is because my 4-leaf petal flowers are die cut from Orchid Cardstock, and I wanted them to be just a little bit contrasting to the roses in the center. After those florals, I put those 4-leaf or 4-petal flowers down. Then I start tucking the leaves in there. Now for the 4-petal flowers as well as the leaves, I'm using my fingers to shape them, just to give those petals or the flowers as well as the leaves just a little bit of shape to them. You can't do it with the roses because they're kind of like larger coin shapes almost, and they're not going to add any dimension, or there's no good way to curve those pieces. And then those little teeny tiny cream flowers are really quite small, so there's no point in doing that there, but it works perfectly for the leaves as well as the 4-petal flowers. Then I'm adding a sentiment to the bottom And the last step here, I always love adding some stickles to the centers of flowers. So I'm doing that on the little cream flowers as well as the gold center for the 4 petal flowers. And this is the final result. I love the look of this very simple but elegant foiled image with those florals on her head. I think it's just so beautiful, and it adds that extra little bit of texture to it that takes it to the next level. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate all the time that you spend with me. You'll find everything I've used listed and linked down in the description box below. I hope you have a fantastic day.